Unity Santa Fe Interspiritual Community. Unity is a positive path for spiritual living, where we support you and each other with practical spiritual teachings that empower us to create a more meaningful and abundant life, if we are willing to be transformed by what we hear here. So I don't have an opening joke today, because the racism and white privilege that is at the root of the unrest in our country and the world today are not joking matters. They are dead serious matters that matter, because Black lives matter. I don't know about you, but metaphorically, I can't breathe. And I hope you can't breathe. I hope we can't and won't continue to breathe this toxic consciousness in our country any longer. I hope we can't and won't tolerate this toxic racism and white privilege in our country any longer. A Center for Action and Contemplation community member and woman of color wrote in part in today's daily meditation, George Floyd of Minnesota, Breonna Taylor of Kentucky, Ahmaud Arbery of Georgia, Tony McDade of Florida. Your nation failed you. Rest in peace. Kyrie eleison. She further wrote, 4 people whom I never knew have been murdered. It is merely the tip of an iceberg. The details of each heinous act are so horrifically unjust that there is no sense to be made of them. Each of the 4 was victimized. Each of them was Black. But their race was not the cause of death. Each was murdered because of the systemic structures that endow white people with an unimaginable authority and privilege based on the perpetuation of lies. The onus is not on the victims, but on the perpetrators and their oppressive and unjust systems. Late night television host Jimmy Kimmel said about white privilege, I read something that I think makes a lot of sense. It's this. White privilege doesn't mean your life hasn't been hard. It just means the color of your skin isn't one of the things that makes it harder. He said, wherever you stand, I don't see how you can argue with that. White privilege means the color of your skin isn't one of the things that makes your life hard. Last Sunday, I missed an opportunity to address the racial injustice and unrest in our country. Perhaps I missed the opportunity because I don't watch television, and I only had a vague awareness of what happened to George Floyd and the resultant outcry in our country and the world. But A Course in Miracles says, I have given this all the meaning it has for me. So perhaps last Sunday I missed an opportunity to address the racial injustice and unrest in our country because I don't watch television. Or maybe because in the midst of my white privilege, I didn't give sufficient meaning to it. Clearly, I need to give it more meaning, a deeper meaning. Clearly, it's time for me and each one of us who enjoy, that word's so horrible, but who enjoy white privilege, to expand the meaning racism and white privilege has for us individually and as a spiritual community, especially those of us who consciously or unconsciously enjoy the white privilege that is ours solely because of the color of our skin. So today and for the next 3 Sundays, I am dedicating this 4-part series of the 8 steps into divine mind consciousness to a vision of racial justice and the dismantling of white privilege in our country and wherever else it exists in the world.